Joe Montana here. In my football days, I knew the importance of a strong defense. Now I'm sharing how you can help defend your health against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease. Are you 50 or older like me? The CDC now recommends vaccination against pneumococcal disease. Even if you're healthy, your age puts you at increased risk and over 6 times greater risk of hospitalization with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50. Schedule your appointment today at vaxassist.com.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
So, this is fun, huh?
Listen, we're going old school. We literally have a cell phone in the middle of the desk, and our foreheads are together. We're practically Siamese twins.
We practically are at this
right
point.
now, which is kind of weird, but I mean, not really weird. It'd be weird, I guess, if our chest hairs intertwined or something. But we're doing this. The vein is like popping out of your forehead and pulsating.
And it should be. And I'll tell you why. I have never had more problems. I can't believe that we continue to pay Blog Talk Radio, and I know we complain about this all the time.
It's like a marriage.
It's so
Blog
awful.
Blog Talk is like no, I'm not going to say that. I'll get so much hate mail.
You can get that hate mail if you want. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, that Pally.
Right. Blog Talk is like, I can't even.
You know what? It's seriously, it's like
it's like a wife. I don't want to hear from her right now, so I'm just not going to listen. I'm going to completely shut down, and you're not going to be able to talk, and if you do talk, it's not going to matter, which is pretty much what was happening to us.
Well, exactly. And you know what's sad is Blog Talk
is
Blog
sad.
Talk in general.
Blog Talk Radio is sad.
But it feeds our Spreaker feed and our iHeartRadio feed. So when it goes down, the way that we have to configure it, everything gets hammered. Pisses me off to no end.
And it makes me want to get hammered.
It does that's actually not a bad idea. Maybe we should just get drunk tonight and call it a day.
Or listen, we have that bottle of whiskey. I say we drink live on the show.
Yeah, I love sleeping in the studio.
It's raining outside. It gets all snuggly.
Exactly. We could just turn around and say we were caught in the storm. I don't know. This is getting a little weird now.
Yeah. What storm? You're in California. You're not even in the Sierras.
We were stormed in. It was terrible.
Right. You got a dusting of rain. You're in a drought. What happened? Obama said it was due to global warming.
It must be due to global warming. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I apologize for the horrendous sound. I apologize on behalf of Blog Talk Radio.
I don't apologize on behalf of Blog Talk Radio. They can apologize themselves. I don't apologize for anybody else.
But it affects us. See, and this is one of those things, too. I
So
know
they should apologize to us.
Exactly. They should apologize to us. And I'm going to have a strongly worded email with them. I may use the word damn a couple times.
I think, listen, you don't want it to get automatically round filed. You might want to go with darn.
Either way, it doesn't matter. What's important now is we're here. We have so much to cover, I don't know if I can even do it this way because it just feels weird, but we'll get to it.
This is old. This reminds me of the first podcast we did sitting in the living room
of
your mom's house.
It was my house, to be fair. To be fair, it was my house.
It was in the basement of your mom's house, and we were surrounded.
It's still my house. I lived there.
We had all the monitors on with World of Warcraft going. And you were asking for meatloaf. But
Mom, meatloaf! Oh, man. It's mostly down with BTR. I'll tell you,
I'm not down with BTR.
I'm not down with either. Here's the thing that bothers me, is we put all this effort into the show, we get things ready, we really want to produce a product that we're proud of, or at least a product that makes us laugh. I don't know which one.
Making us laugh is much more important, because if we take this too seriously,
right,
we'll lose all three of our listeners.
Right. And then to have this happen, and that was, 20 minutes of silence on a talk radio show? Brilliant.
It was brilliant. Do you know why?
Why?
Because that's what the American public is right now. They're silent. It was a metaphor for what's going on in this country, Sean. It was beautifully planned and beautifully executed, and I think we should celebrate and embrace it.
Oh, man. You do make me laugh. I'll give you that. Phone number is 347-205-9399. Fortunately, the chat room's working, and I thank everyone who waited through that disaster for everything.
You're welcome. I kind of kept us afloat. It was difficult to do.
The one thing you've ever done with technology.
Yeah, and I don't even know if I was typing correctly.
You were.
But people asked what I was wearing. I told them the truth. I said a licorice thong and a shoulder holster.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. But somebody was wearing a black dress and stilettos.
And who was that?
You're just going to have to go back through the history and check, because I'm not giving that one up.
No. Well, I refuse. Listen.
Service like Blog Talk did us. And somebody else pointed out the fact that would be funny that Blog Talk did that just to screw with us.
Yeah, well, we kind of deserve it, I guess.
Or the NSA, which was my point.
Well, let's at least try to get back on point and get to topic.
No. So we're up against the break.
Yeah, right.
Listen. Okay. So I want to talk something out there real quick. I sent a link out to our folks that are in the chat room, just to kind of get a heads up if anybody had a chance to go get a look at what I popped out. But Admiral Nimitz's Gray Book was a digitized copy was released Monday by the United States Naval Warfare College, and you can get it at www.usnwc.edu/Graybook. It's GRAY book, and essentially what it is it's his operational diary from December 7th, 1941. So when the attack Pearl Harbor, all the way up until I believe it's like 2 or 3 days prior to the Japanese signing the surrender. So it's his diary, his operational diary of the entire Pacific War. And the Naval Warfare College unveiled it in a ceremony. It was live on a cast via the internet at 3:30 Pacific. And after that, trying to download it, it was completely down until Monday afternoon. I was finally able to download it first thing Tuesday morning, and I spent, it's about 1,800 some odd pages.
Oh, I whizzed right through that.
Yeah, completely. But look, I'm a huge fan of source documents,
right.
and we talk about this. And World War II has I have some ties, especially to Pearl Harbor and the European. My family, everybody knows who is from Hawaii. My grandfather was a Pearl Harbor survivor.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother was a radio operator at Bellows Field, which was also attacked the morning of December 7th, which was on Oahu. My other set of grandparents was going to church, and I remember my grandmother saying she remembers walking over to the church and seeing some Japanese aircraft flying so low that a pilot, she swears, one of the pilots looked directly at her. She could describe him to a T. So I spent a few hours in this diary, and I didn't get past December 7th yet. And I plan on reading the entire thing, but just the information contained in it, talking about just detailing where the ships were and kind of what was happening with the attack and so forth. And I find myself reading a paragraph, and I would immediately be carried off to research something else. So if anybody has an interest in source documents, in particular the entrance of the United States into World War II and the Pacific Campaign, I highly recommend downloading it and reading it. And it's scans of the original. It was declassified in 1972, but the Navy War College kept such a tight grip on it that
it wasn't readily available.
It wasn't readily available at all. And if there was a PRA request, some things I saw online from some people that got it said that a lot of it was done on what they felt may have been carbon paper or something, and so it was unreadable, illegible. These scans are so much better. But some of the information in here, there's a part that one talks about December 7, 1930 hours, execute WPL 46 against Japan. And so WPL is War Plan Long Range. Mm-hmm. And WPL 46 was a war plan that the U.S. had in case of war with Japan, and it was from Rainbow 5. And so in searching out these war plans, because that's one of the things I stopped and I said, okay, I know I remember hearing about this, but what is Rainbow 5? There was an entire color-coded set of war plans that the U.S. had, and I found it very interesting. In looking it up, Rainbow 1 was a plan for defensive war to protect the U.S. and the Western Hemisphere north of 10 degrees south latitude, where the U.S. was assumed to have no major allies. Mm-hmm. Okay, Rainbow 2 assumed that the U.S. would be allied with France and Britain. So Britain. Rainbow 3 was a repetition of the Orange Plan, and we'll get into that one in a little bit here. Rainbow 4 was based on the same assumption as Rainbow 1, but extended the American mission to include the entire Western Hemisphere instead of being cut off. And Rainbow 5 ended up being the basis for the American war in the Pacific theater, and it assumed that the U.S. would be allied with Britain and France and would take place in Europe and or Africa. Then I found out there were other color plans. There was War Plan Black, which was a plan for war with Germany, which, okay, yeah, that's a good one to have. War Plan Gray dealt with Central America and the Caribbean. Didn't know that was such a hotbed of activity.
I didn't realize the Caribbean uprising was something we were concerned
Yeah,
about.
apparently it's huge. War Plan Brown talked about the Philippines. War Plan Tan dealt with Cuba. War Plan Red, this one was interesting. War Plan Red was a plan for dealing with Great Britain, specifically a British landing near Washington, D.C. Now, I know they tried that back in like 1812. It didn't work out so well for them after they set the White House on fire. But there was actually a war plan for going to war with Great Britain, which I thought was very interesting. I mean, I haven't delved too much into that as far as what the political thought was at the time that they felt. I mean, maybe Great Britain was still pissed off at us over that whole, secession thing. Then you have War Plan Orange, which was for Japan, Red Orange, and this one was very interesting to me. War Plan Red Orange, the U.S. had plans. They were planning for a war against Great Britain and Japan. So they planned for a contingent, for whatever reason, where Great Britain and Japan were allies.
But it's kind of weird to think that somebody in the chat room is bringing up a decent point, is that, it could have been that if the UK was actually taken over by the Nazis, and that's why that was in place.
Yeah, but you still had War Plan Black for that, because that dealt specifically with Germany. If you read
overrunning Great Britain, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly, right. But if you read what War Plan Red was, there's actually a decent amount of information on it. It talks about the U.S. was concerned for whatever reason about Japan and Great Britain teaming up, or Great Britain having some sort of invasion, an Atlantic war against the U.S.
It's so weird to think that war back then was kind of like a round robin at a softball tournament.
Right. Look, my favorite is War Plan Yellow, which deals with war in China. Why would they name it yellow? I think it's racist. Well, but Well, because we had assets there, right? War Plan Gold involved war with France, so maybe gold because, we're solid. We don't need to really worry about it.
Their plan literally consisted of the words, it's France, LOL.
Before LOL was actually cool. And then War Plan White dealt with the domestic uprising in the United States. I'm sure there's nothing like that today, so we're probably fine. I'm sure the military has no plans for dealing with us hostile citizenry. So just in researching some of this stuff, I had no idea that those even existed until I got into this. I'm excited because I'm only, like I said, several hours into this, and I haven't made it past page 10 because I always find a new caveat, and it's a source document from the time. Another thing that was very interesting to me was there's actually a study done where, not really a study, but there's a running summary of the situation with Japan, but it also talks about kind of the political implications with Japan and how Japan is set up versus the United States. in terms of what's happening politically at home.
Oh, right.
In the United States and Hawaii and really the strategic the strategic mission that Japan, that they believed was trying to accomplish. So what it said, political factors involved. It's a political talk show, and it's kind of took me a long way to get there, but I'm here now. Some of the political factors that were quoted here, it says Japan is under more or less unified military control. And this is interesting. Listen to what's in this. Our government is more cumbersome for purposes of making war. The citizenry is probably well unified in support of the government in this war, but our preparations were delayed because we did not have a, quote, full emergency situation. Japan's connection with the Axis is useful as a means of diverting our strength. Our associated powers in the Pacific were woefully weak and much weaker today through having lost 2 capital ships. And those were 2 ships that were complete losses, not salvageable, and that they're talking about. And then they talk about Japan's economic factors. Our national economy is much stronger than Japan's. It probably was her desperate economic status which led to her attack to attack us. Each success in the Malay area will improve her overall status, provided she can make use of the economic accretions in time. Oil is the most critical supply for her. So and then talks about our weakness. Our weakness is the losses of strategic materials from the area into which the Japs are advancing, and a financial status which may well cause trouble. The lack of resources of Hawaii and other island areas we must defend is also a weakness. It also talks about psychological factors. Japan probably started the war with a will to win based on desperation. Her initial success at Pearl Harbor, off Malaya, etc., will undoubtedly make her morale very high. Conversely, our losses, occasioned through not being the aggressor, will put a strain on morale, particularly as we probably will not be able to strike back very effectively for a long time. We're on the defensive. Japan has their strategic initiative. That is hard for us to take. So you not only get into the nuts and bolts of what assets were where, because there is a lot of that also, but you get into thoughts about, hey, this is what the commander-in-chief of the Pacific forces thought was happening at the time. This is what his thoughts on why Japan attacked, and kind of his thoughts on our position. And I'm so excited by this find. I wanted to share it with everybody. It didn't get a lot that I saw, anyways, of media play, which really disappointed me because it is such a huge asset. It is a big deal. It is, and
even just plain historically, just for historical purposes. Never mind if you wanted to learn from it or move forward or whatever. Just the fact that this is such a huge part of our American history, and here's somebody who is on the spearhead, if you will, of the Pacific War and World War II. And it goes back to reading it because it kind of, right, wrong, or indifferent, makes us who we are.
It's like you're not reading history of what happened in the Pacific War from a textbook.
Right.
or
This
from
is from the
somebody.
horse's mouth.
Right, like almost literally. You could.
No, it's a huge find. I look forward to trying to read through it. It's really cool. I enjoy history, and I enjoy, especially from World War II, just because I say it before, it was the greatest generation, in my opinion, or one of the greatest generations, if not the. And it really defines a lot about who we are and what we should be learning about our history. I look forward to it. Thank you for.
You're welcome. And like I said, I really look forward to delving into this even more. I wanted to bring it to our folks. We have a very educated listenership. Wanted to bring it out to them. I thought it'd be something that most of our folks should enjoy. And
speaking of naval attack.
Did you get that lint out finally? You've been picking at that thing for like 10 minutes.
AFP, about 4 hours ago, news group is reporting that a Russian warship docked in Havana today without explanation from the communist Cuba or its state media. The Viktor Leonov CCB-175 boat is 300 feet long and was docked at the Port of Havana cruise ship area near the Russian Orthodox Cathedral.
Okay, so a few things here. First of all, last time the Russians landed in Cuba, it wasn't that big of a deal. Second of all, it is Havana. Hey, vacation. Third of all, it's right by a cathedral. So there are a few different possibilities for why it's there. What's the big deal?
It's a Meridian class intelligence ship.
Meaning really smart people are on it.
No, it's a spy ship.
Well, it's not doing a good job. We know you're there. You're supposed to hide or something.
But it's weird how, like you said, when was the last time a Russian ship, marked Russian ship landed in Cuba?
Landed or like pulled up to?
Pulled up.
Because that would be kind of weird if it landed there.
Yeah, because that was an a-hole for your whole Nimitz thing.
Well, look, you brought up landed. I didn't. It painted a picture for me.
But it's weird how all of a sudden Putin's now putting intelligence ships 90-something miles off of our coast. Now that the Olympics are over, and that kind of, because he didn't want that, I don't know if that was part of the plan. I don't want this to overshadow the Olympics. Make sure you land the day after or two, something. But it's just bizarre how all of a sudden they're interested in putting intelligence ships off our coast again.
Why would they do it so out there, though? I mean, they obviously had to know we were going to know it's there unless they wanted us to know it's there.
Well,
right?
and Iggy in the chat kind of beat me to the punch, but is this in coordination with the Iranian ships that are allegedly somewhere in the Atlantic right now? Or something to that effect? Are they there to give support? Are they there to share intelligence with the Iranians? It's an intelligence gathering ship. It's that makes me concerned. You know what I mean? And this isn't, and they didn't tell anyone. Usually when we send ships into ports that are questionable or vice versa, a lot of the countries kind of make the announcement. Hey, just so you know, we're going to be sending 3 of our ships to the dock of Existan or whatever to do refueling, blah, 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 blah. This time, it was just completely silent. Hey, all of a sudden it shows up. I don't know if we knew ahead of time it was there or not, but there was nothing in the media that allowed it. And it's what we talked about a few weeks ago with China. It's like Russia's testing the waters, like Iran testing the waters. And is this a test, or is this just business as usual for the Russians? I'm going to say it's a test.
Now, I would be more concerned if they had done other things like fly bombers right up to our airspace, or if they'd have parked like a nuclear submarine in the Gulf of Mexico. Then maybe I'd be more concerned.
A little bit more nervous,
right?
Yeah.
But until
this is totally unrelated.
I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure what it is. Listen, maybe Cuba had some athletes. Cuba had some athletes in the Olympics, and they needed a ride back home. Look, perhaps their ship broke down, their plane broke down, and they needed a ride. And Putin, being the good sport that he was,
being the hell of a guy that he was,
right? Putt just wanted to give him a ride.
So I'd like to see what the White House's lack of response to this is going to be. And are they going to come out and say, oh, we knew they were going, it's not a big deal, we were watching them the whole time? Or are they going to come out and either tough talk it, or are they going to come out and do nothing at all?
Do you really think Obama's going to tough talk?
No, I'm just hoping maybe someday.
He's going to apologize. Hey, listen, I'm really sorry that we didn't refuel your ship
I'm
on
really
the way
sorry
to
media is
Cuba.
making a big deal out of this, and don't hold our media accountable. We're trying to control them with the FCC.
Right.
We haven't got there yet like you have, so go easy on us.
We tried putting some people in their rooms to kind of make sure that and we tried to do it ahead of your ship landing there because we knew it was coming, but we got such big pushback.
Welcome to America.
Yeah.
So going from one communist state to another, Cuba, have you been following Venezuela at all? And there's a couple reasons why. A lot of people haven't, and not only do we buy a lot of oil from Venezuela, so the turmoil that's going on there, I think is something that needs to be watched for, but the citizenry in general, it's kind of like what's going on in Kiev, Ukraine, who apparently has been semi-straightened out, but not completely, where they're a socialist country. They're under that idiot Hugo Chavez. And
Baby Hugo?
Baby Hugo.
Doesn't he kind of look like Baby Hugo?
He does. He did. Now I think he just looks like ant food. He does. He looks just like ant food and worm food right now. The current president, Nicolas Maduro, is continuing with his socialist ways. I think they called it the Bolivia movement or whatever. But it's going to drive up we buy a lot of oil from Venezuela. They are a socialist/communist country, depending on who you talk to. But it's also another country where they went to socialism, straight socialism, like 12 years ago, 10 years ago, something like that. It's a newer thing for them. And it's taken that long for the people to start revolting against the socialist government. And that's something that I wish we in this country would pay attention to. And part of me feels that that's one of the reasons why mainstream media doesn't draw a lot of attention to this. Kiev was a little bit different. It was about their trade agreement. Who are they going to trade with, the West or Russia, freedom or a puppetry system? So that's why Venezuela is a lot different. It's starting to be that revolution against socialism, against communism. You have a pretty much a self-appointed government that has all the control, all the might. You have a rather disarmed citizenry. I was reading their gun ownership. It's not that high, but guns are pretty much outlawed. And now it's been only 10 years, and they have all this oil. They should have a ton of money. They have a lot of oil. Now it's been 10 or 12 years, something like that, and the citizenry is starting to revolt. And that's a real big indication as to how bad the idea of socialism is. And they're a fairly modern society. I wouldn't say that they are probably a good comparison to us in every dynamic, but overall they're a fairly modern society. They had decent wealth prior. They have a lot of oil to export. They deal with some embargoes and stuff now because of some of the things that they've done. But we've actually spoke out against it, which is amazing to me. Against the opposition, I believe, our government, the opposition leader who's, for everything I've read, listen, I'm not saying I know the guy and he's an angel, but he's trying to bring the country back to more of a constitution, a free republic constitution type thing. He's not, I don't think he's the best guy on the face of the planet, but I think he's the lesser of the two evils in the people's eyes. It goes to show you that when socialism is enacted in a country so harshly, and so quickly, it was a quick changeover. It wasn't like they're doing to us now, where it's piece by piece by piece, and we, it's that nudge like we talked about Cass Sunstein, where you eventually get used to the idea. This was almost like the, hey, tomorrow, by the way, you work for us, versus working for yourself. So I really want people to pay attention to Venezuela, and watch our gas prices in comparison because they're going to go up. But watch how the government reacts when the people in a socialist country start to fight back and push back. And, people are dying there just like Kiev, and it's not getting nearly as much media coverage, which to me is the most amazing thing in the world. You couldn't turn on the TV in the last 2 weeks without seeing something about Kiev and the Olympics. Venezuela, you look for Venezuela, it's like a cricket. You kind of have to dig down a little bit. So it's a big indicator as to what happens when the people get pissed off and the government runs amok.
So what's happening in this country? Because the government's running amok, but people
haven't caught on
pissed
yet.
off.
They're just not pissed off yet. And they're not pissed off yet because half the country's getting shit for free, and the other half of the country is too busy working. And there's still a percentage of them. I mean, we've said it time and again, 50% of this country doesn't work right now. They don't pay taxes. Most of them don't work. They're on some sort of assistance. The other 50%, believe it or not, a percentage of them are Democrats, and they're too busy talking about how wonderful they are and how they're helping everybody else. And I have a great clip to play after the break about Obamacare. And I really think a lot of conservatives are just sick of talking to that blue in the face.
Red in the face.
Red
blue
in the
would
face.
be blue would be Democrat. I mean, I guess there's a lot of blue in their face.
I don't mean that. I mean, I
know exactly what you mean, but I don't even think it's just conservatives. I think it's regular Americans who may not label themselves Democrat, Republicans, or whatever. Right? They may have a union job or whatever it is without getting
in that middle ground.
Yeah, without getting too caught up in the politics.
I met two gals the other night who talked about the show, and I was under the impression they were independents, but they worked for the federal government. However, they agreed a lot with what we talked about in the show, like overwhelmingly.
I bet they didn't consider themselves conservative either.
No.
It's amazing how that works.
I know. It's almost like it's almost like you don't want to say you're that, even though you appreciate everything that
you
is.
can't say you're conservative because, you're one of those. Because that's what's
happened to us in this country.
You're programmed,
We've
right?
had that stigma put upon us that we are these crazy right-winger, everyone needs a gun, which I believe they do.
They do. But most people do, in fact, need a gun. So, yeah, you do have us there. But let me put your liberal butt in a dark alley with 3 people who are trying to do violence upon you, and I'll give you a rape whistle.
Right. No.
Or a gun. You pick. You can pick. I'll give you your pick. Right.
Well, and it's one of those things, too, like we talked about. We went back to what's the most important thing? Small government, spending individual liberty. Pretty much. I mean, that's everything, for the most part, that conservatives – and I talked to them about that. Do you want a government so big that you have what's going on now where it's just spending money hand over fist, there's zero oversight, nobody has control? Mm-hmm. Or do you want a government that's responsible and answers? And I said, let me ask you this. You work for the government. If you screwed up your job tomorrow, do you just get a free pass? And she said, well, no. And I said, exactly. I said, you actually have to be responsible. I said, you get to a point in government where the people at the head of these agencies aren't held responsible when things go south. Look at what happened with IRS and Lerner. She was allowed to retire. And so I went from there and I just built it. And by the end of it, they both said they were going to tune into the show and listen because they liked what we had.
Well, welcome to the show. Look at California. California is a perfect model with a huge government run amok.
Yeah.
And I just like saying amok because it's fun to say amok. But there's a serious push, and it's actually gaining steam, for the state to split into 6 different states.
Yes.
Now,
I am excited for that idea.
That's going to be very, very difficult to do, to split the California government up into 6 different states. I like the idea of it. I think the transition would cost a lot of money, and I think it would be very, very messy. I'm a huge supporter of either adding more representatives to state government because Californians are underrepresented. I don't think they've added representatives to the state legislature. And I heard a statistic. I have not verified it, but I've heard since like the early 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s.
Yeah, we're still in line with that.
But the population's exploded. Now, I have not verified that figure to be fair, but I believe it to be accurate. The other side of that is there's a very real argument for splitting the state of California, at least into 2 states. The state is just way too big. Yeah. And you have –
geographically speaking.
It is, geographically speaking, and population-wise. But you have 2 major population centers that dictate how the entire state goes in San Francisco and Los Angeles. And San Diego to some extent also, but particularly the Los Angeles region and San Francisco. Bay Area.
Well, that's why a lot of people don't even know that Sacramento is the capital of California. They think that Los Angeles is. And that's serious. You talk to a lot of people because they know that a lot of the values of LA get enforced in Sacramento.
Well, yeah. And do you know what the capital of Alaska is?
Anchorage.
Juneau. See how I did that? But I kill me. I'm here all night, folks.
I love having to take the fall for a joke.
I know. I think that is what you're talking about as far as people's values, and we're talking about, look, even people may not label themselves as conservative or Democrat, Republican, whatever it is. They're just working folks, but they have a vested interest in society. A lot of them have values and beliefs that are consistent with most conservative values, right? And that's why jump vote is so important, and
voters trust,
yeah, because it kind of pulls those values together in people with different backgrounds. But man, I think that's why some of these initiatives are gaining momentum.
Yeah, and I think it's a very big tale as to people are aggravated, and now we've seen this on a federal level with people, after the last election and with the passing of Obamacare and the implementation, you had states talking about seceding from the union. And granted, it didn't pick up a lot of steam, but that talk was there, which I don't remember that talk ever being there myself.
No, we talked about that before.
And you look at the cost, the subsection of the comparison, you have California, which has a pretty in-line comparison to the country. It's got some numbers that are off, but it's a good dissection of the country in comparison, and you're starting to see them wanting to break away that big out-of-control government. They just had I think it was a state senator who just got thrown in jail, he just got arrested.
He's got indicted federally, right?
Federally for taking huge bribes down in the LA area. Why? Well, the government's run out of Sacramento, and there's no oversight down in LA, and he can play all these games all he wants, but just the fact that that's big government. That's what happens when you have big government. When you're a full-time legislator and you all you do is run around, find a reason to pass a law to pay yourself, and if you can scam, you do it. And that's unfortunately what happens a lot in big government versus a part-time legislature or a small government where, hey, we're just here to do the work that needs to get done for this one session, and I got to go back home because I have to go to work.
Right. I have to tend to my business.
Right.
Or whatever it is.
I serve because I have to do whatever.
I serve because I want to serve. Not because it's a career.
Right.
Public service should not be a career unless you're military or public safety or something like that. Then you know what? You're
one of those support one of those jobs, or I understand why people who are like financial people can make a public career out of it. If your job
I'm talking about elected officials.
Elected officials, yeah. There's no reason for it to be a career choice. It's not supposed to be a career choice, and that's the problem. So I just thought that was interesting that that's come up. We do have to take a break. Hopefully the show will still be here.
That was a 40-minute segment.
Was it really? Because
yeah.
I'm looking at 37 minutes, 15 seconds right now.
Was I an a-hole when you went through the whole freaking
Hey,
stuff
folks,
there?
thank you so much for hanging with us through this turbulent times. 347-205-9399 is the phone number. We're actually going to try and take a break. We'll be back at 3 here on the Sackheads Radio Show.